Hello readers, it's Elle Casey and I'm here to answer some reader interview questions. So these are submitted to my Facebook site and I'm going to get started with answering them while some really cool music plays in the background, like Rihanna. Okay, so we're going to start with Whitney's questions. If you could have any mythical pet, what would it be and why? That's a really easy one. It would be a dragon. But when I was younger, if you'd asked me this question, I would have just said dragon, and that would have been the answer. But now that I'm a grown-up and I have kids, I'm wondering, is this dragon going to fit in my house? Will it eat my children? So it would have to be either a small dragon or a dragon that could get small and then big as I needed it to be, getting bigger for riding and purposes like that, like to the grocery store or whatever. So dragon, yes, if it could accommodate my small house. Otherwise, I don't even know if I know what other mythical creatures, because whenever someone says mythical creature, all I think about is dragon. Like I want one of those. But so that's my answer. Probably not the best answer in the world, but that's all I got. Do you ever get writer's block? And if so, how do you break down that horrible brick wall? Well, I don't know that I get writer's block, because even when I don't feel like writing, I can still write. But I will say that I did start writing a book in January, Desperate Measures 2, and I got halfway through, and it was a real struggle for me. And it's not that I couldn't write, it's that what I was writing, I just didn't like it. And honestly, every time I write a book, I think it's boring. When I'm writing it, I think, oh, this will be the one that all my readers hate because it's just going to be too boring. It's going to be missing the humor or missing the action or the things that my books are generally known for. Yeah, that was the first time I ever encountered anything like writer's block, although it wasn't writer's block because I was still writing. I find that if I just sit down and start, even if I don't feel like it in the beginning, that it works out. The story starts flowing, the characters start talking, and then I don't have a problem anymore. So I guess the answer is no, I've never really had writer's block, but I have had writer's regret over something that I wrote and decided not to force it. I put that project on hold while I worked on some other things, and I will come back to it later this year. If you could have any one person in the world read your book, who would it be and why? You know what? There's a group of readers that it absolutely thrills me when I find out they've read my book, and it's people who don't read normally. So there isn't like a famous person or I don't know, some figure from history that I would like to read my book, because for me, the magic of writing is to captivate people. And sometimes the hardest people to captivate are people who've just never engaged in the reading process in a way like many of the avid readers do. And so there's been a few occasions where I've received an email or read a review from a reader saying that I haven't read a book in 15 years, or I've never liked reading books before and I read this one and now I love reading again, or I love reading for the first time. That for me, because reading is so important to me and I love it so much, and it was really an escape for me when I was younger, a much needed escape, that to be able to inspire people to read like that is incredibly important to me. So I guess that's the group. Oh, I love this song. By the way, I have 1,000 likes on Facebook and I'm going to have a dance party. And so I invite you to join me, and you can make a dance video too, and we'll put a big montage together. We can all be cool together. Okay, let me see what my next question is. Okay. If you became a zombie, who would you have the munchies for? I'm pretty sure I'd be hunting down Adam Levine and eating him first. Out of all this one is from Leisha Kelly. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name correctly. Out of all the characters in your books, which one is your favorite and why? Well, that's like picking a favorite child, which I do on a daily basis. Whichever child is making me happy that day becomes my favorite. I have absolutely no problem doing that. Good competition is good for children. Really, it makes them behave better. So I encourage all you parents to pick a daily favorite. I love all of my characters for different reasons. They're all real to me, so because they feel so real, it's really hard to say one's my favorite over the other. I guess I'm less attached to some than others. But I guess out of all of them, the one that spoke loudest to me and really captured my heart was Jane. Jane Sparks of the War of the Fae series and the Clash of the Other Worlds series. But she's not my favorite. She's just incredibly special to me, and probably because that's how a lot of how I was when I was her age. So I think it's a piece of me in there. I mean, I guess there's a piece of me in all my characters, but especially in Jane. Heather Dawn Sawala. Why, oh why did the Apocalypse series have to end? I love them so much and could go for more. Well, you know, with me, you never say it's over until the fat lady sings, and I have not sung yet. So I'm actually considering doing an offshoot series next year, 2014, based on the Amazons. And it will cover the same period of time and actually start earlier than the original Apocalypse series. So when there were still adults in the world, I think I will start it there, because if you remember from the series, Kirsten is very involved in knowing what's going on with the virus and the reason for the apocalyptic event that leaves the teenagers alone. So I think it would be interesting to look into that. And of course, everybody's curious what happened with Bodo, so he will be coming into that series as well. But it's not a for sure thing, so, you know, don't hold me to it. When you see it on my publishing schedule, then you'll know it's a for sure thing, and it's not there yet. But, oh yeah, before I move on, I just want to say I really appreciate everybody's, like, total enthusiasm for that series, and all the reviews you guys have done for me, especially for the book 4. Like, I've gotten more reviews fast for that book than any of my other books, and I just think that's awesome. You guys are helping me find new readers, and that's what keeps me writing. Like, without you guys doing that, I have to stop writing, so thank you very much for that. Heather Jeffers, what is your favorite book as an adult? More importantly, what was your favorite book as a child? As an adult, my favorite book? You know what? I haven't read a lot of books in the last year that I've been writing, and really the last series that captivated me probably was either Twilight or the series by Patricia Briggs with the why can't I think of her name? This happens to me every time I do a video and I try to talk about her. The series where the girl turns into a coyote and she's in love with the werewolf guy. That series, I really love that series. I love that the girl is independent and tough and kind of an outcast. I always like those kind of characters. And I also was a big fan of the Sookie Stackhouse novels, but I haven't read all of them. I only read like the first 5 or 6, and I was a big fan. And of course, I became a fan of True Blood after that. But I've always loved fantasy. I've been a fantasy reader my whole life. I started with The Hobbit, and I just never stopped. So, and my favorite books as a kid, well, I read all the time when I was a kid. I preferred to read rather than do anything else, and I can read very fast. So I read thousands of books, and I don't know that I can pick a favorite, but I'll tell you the themes that are my favorite are where there are kids having to survive without adults around. Those are like my absolute favorites. So there's one called The Boxcar Children, which became a series, but I only read the very first book. And that book, I think I've read that book 15 times. I absolutely adore that book. And it's for young readers. So if you have any really young kids and you want to inspire them to be independent and strong and loving towards family members, their siblings, I think The Boxcar Children is a great book. But I think it was written like in the 50s or something, so the language is a little odd now, and the children don't act like children of today. But I don't think that matters, you know. I think kids will connect anyway. It's such a great book. Stephanie Clifton asks, how do you have time to breathe in the day? You work, you're a mom, and you write incessantly. Well, I divide my life up into pieces, I guess. When I'm writing, and everyone is supposed to leave me alone. That doesn't always happen. And definitely my doggies don't leave me alone, but they don't talk, so I can kind of manage that. And my husband, like, manages the household and the kids while I'm dedicated to writing. He also manages the financial part of my business, and he helps me put together different ideas for promotions. And my kids are very patient. When I've been writing for too long, they'll come in and just sit near me and do things next to me and get my attention that way. And I try to get up early in the morning and do a lot of my writing before everybody gets up, so that helps. Now I also teach, and that's forced 2 days away from the house. I don't do any writing during that period because teaching just empties my brain of the ability to think. So I can't write during those 2 days. But I do write on the weekends as well. So I write 5 days a week and I teach 2 days a week. So I'm very, very busy. But when you get reviews like I get from readers who are just anxious for the next book and grateful for the time that I'm putting in, it's not work so much. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. And I don't ever want to be ungrateful and just blow readers off. So I don't know that I'll continue to write 7 days a week, because I'm going to quit teaching soon. I don't know that I will fill those 2 days with writing. I will still need some time off, but I will always be writing books because I know what it's like to be an avid reader and want a writer that I like to give me more. So I want to be able to do that for my readers as long as I can. If I was a zombie, I would munch on Alexander Skarsgård. He's so tall, blonde, and Viking-y. Plus, he's a vamp, so he wouldn't die. Okay, Heather Jeffers just wanted to join in the conversation, and I agree with you. I think Alexander Skarsgård would be an excellent meal. I could dine on him for at least a week. I just want to turn up this song. This is the theme music for my newest series. I'm writing the first book now. It's called Duality. And I'm actually going to do a book trailer for the first time. And I just actually purchased the book trailer today, so you'll be seeing it in the next week or so. But this is a concept, if you've read on my website or you've read on Goodreads, that I don't think has been done before by another author. Maybe it has, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm very excited about the concept. I'm about half done with the first book, and I'll be finishing up within the next 2 weeks. And I don't know, I think it's going to be fun. It's a little more romancy than my other books have been, but it's definitely not focused totally on romance. It's got some other stuff going on. So anyway, I love the music that I bought for it. It's very, it has the total mood of the book. Rosemary Montgomery says, like Stephanie, I would like to know how you cope with your busy schedule and find time for everything. So I already answered that one, but the answer is with help and a lot of understanding people. Allison Davis, I would like to know if you've ever written something you look back on and wish you'd done differently, be it events in a book, an ending, a whole character, whatever. Well, that's a dangerous road, actually, because I have gone back and read my books, and, I have re-edited them, and I could probably edit my books over and over for all of eternity, because I'll read a sentence and I'll say, oh, I could have said it like this, the same thing. I could have just done it like this and maybe it would have been better. And I think that's a mistake, to just constantly be going into books and tweaking them here and there. At some point, you just have to walk away and say that's how it's going to be. But Wrecked was my first book. And after I wrote several other books, I became a better writer. I think I become a better writer like most people do with the more practice I have. So after I wrote a few more books, I went back to Wrecked, and I did quite a bit of editing on that book, mostly because some readers had pointed out some things that I agreed with. Some negative reviews pointed out some things I agreed with about point of view issues and things like that. And so I went in there and I just fixed all of it. So that book, I've gone back and read it a couple times since, and I think, I could have written it better, but it's because it was my first book. So it's still a great story, and it's a story that I had to tell. It was in my head for a really long time. So I don't know. I don't regret any of the themes I've used. I don't regret any of the swear words my characters have used. I don't regret any of the sexual scenes or the themes that came through in any of the books. I don't regret any of that. We'll get into it in some other questions, I think. I don't remember what all the questions are, but I seem to recall something about this. It will come up. And that is that I don't make up the whole story. When I sit down to write the book, I just come up with some characters and a basic situation, and then I just follow the character's lead. So I never know where my books are going to go. I never know what the characters are going to do and say. It just rolls out at the moment. And I'm just as surprised as my readers are when I start reading stuff. I laugh at my own books because for me it's like I'm listening to a conversation that somebody else is having, not one that I've created. So I guess the answer is no. I don't regret anything, but I do believe I've become a better writer with my newer books. And so I think with each new release, you'll see an improvement in my writing. Given a day with absolutely nothing to do, what would you choose to do? If I didn't have to do any writing, I would sleep in at least till 9:30. I would have a fried egg for breakfast, like my husband makes it with a lot of butter, and a mug of tea. And then I might take a nice hike. Where I live, it's like really gorgeous, and the weather was perfect today, so I might do that. I might do a little bit of shopping. I'm not a huge shopper, so I do it rarely. But so when I do it, I really enjoy it. And I would hang out with friends and my family at the same time. Like I'd go to a big dinner or something, or have a big dinner at my house and just sit up till 1 o'clock in the morning drinking wine and laughing and goofing around. And of course, I'd cuddle with my husband after. So that would be my perfect day. What was the first full novel that you wrote in your life? Was it published? Well, my first full novel was Wrecked, which I wrote January 1st of 2012. And all of my books are self-published. I have never submitted my books to an agent for publishing in the English language. And until an agent contacts me, I'm sure I probably never will. So we'll see. I mean, maybe someday I'll have a real big blockbuster and somebody will want to publish it for me, and I'll look at the offer. I'm not opposed to it. I love self-publishing, but I think traditional publishing has a lot of things to offer. So we'll see. Who knows what the future will hold. Did you always, this is from Valkyrie Fatality, and so was I forgot to tell you who asked these questions. So Allison Davis asked if I ever regretted something, and April Cedarland asked me about, with a day with nothing to do, what would I do? And Valkyrie Fatality asked the last one and also asked, did you always know writing was what you wanted to do with your life? And the answer is no, although I've always enjoyed writing. And I've been writing little stories since I was a kid. And I have many times cruised through Barnes & Noble, or back in the day Walden Books, and looked up that like giant book that has a list of all the publishers or all the agents or whatever in it. And I've purchased books like Stephen King's On Writing and stuff, always thinking in the back of my mind, maybe I could write a book someday. But then when I learned the process is, getting rejected 100 times by agents who are sometimes not very nice, and, that it's just like winning the lottery to get published. And I just thought, I can't do that. Like, I don't think my heart could take that kind of awful rejection, because when you put your heart and soul into something and then people look at it and say it's crap, I mean, that's painful for me. Maybe some people have thicker skin than I do, but anyway, I just couldn't see myself doing that. I don't have the patience for it, so I just kind of disregarded it. But when I learned about self-publishing and knew that I could just go right to my readers and let them decide, I was like, yeah, I'm going to write that book now. So I did. Claire Hodgetts says, what did you want to be when you grew up at age 6 to 10? Why? And at what point did it change to writing? What did I want to be when I grew up? My mind changed, I don't know, maybe 100 times between the age of 6 and 10. In fact, I don't remember even having a desire to do anything except play during those ages. And even when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I finally decided to join the military after high school because I just had absolutely no desire to be anything. And what I wanted to do was learn another language and travel around Europe. So I thought I would do that in the military. But the job of translator was not available at the time, so I became an air traffic controller instead. And that was just pure luck, and it's the funnest job other than writing that I've ever had in my life. It's like playing a video game for a living. Of course, you're playing with human lives and billions of dollars worth of aircrafts, but, I was 18 years old and controlling air traffic over Germany for 3 years. So I was really good at it. I really loved it. I made some really great friends, and but then I got out of the military and I did all kinds of jobs. I mean, I've waited tables. It's like the most awful job in the world because people are so mean to waiters and waitresses. For those of you out there who eat out, please be nice to your waiters and waitresses. It is such a crappy job sometimes. I also was a stockbroker for Waterhouse Securities, which is now TD Ameritrade. And I worked for some private financial firms, and I owned a restaurant, and I was I still am, a lawyer. I mean, I've worked a ton of like little odd jobs and stuff. The thing with me is I am very type A, like stubborn person, and I also get bored easy. So once I learned a job and learned it well, I was looking for another challenge. And in most jobs, there is no other challenge. You just do what you do. So I would move on. So anyway, I've done a lot of things, but writer is the one thing that just really absolutely sings to me. Like it's in my heart and soul. This is what I was meant to do. And I just wish I had discovered it sooner. But, you know, self-publishing wasn't available sooner like it is now, and ebooks didn't exist. And so it wouldn't have happened for me sooner. I just had to wait for the technology to catch up to what I needed to be, and that finally happened. So I'm just glad I found it, and I'm extremely grateful to Amazon for making it all possible. Who is your favorite author? I think my favorite author of all time is Stephen King. And what's funny about that is I am not a big horror fan. In fact, I do not watch scary movies because they stay with me forever. And I'm not a fan of horror books, but I'm a huge fan of the way Stephen King writes. I mean, he is brilliant. I think he's like one of the best writers ever born. I just think he's fabulous. So I would say he's my favorite author, but I got lots of authors I admire and really like their work. And you can say what you want about Stephanie Meyer or Patricia Briggs or any of those people who write books that people later give them a hard time about not having the skill or whatever, but I'm into the storytelling, the ability to tell a story, and Stephanie Meyers can tell a story, so I really liked her books, some more than others. I don't know, I have some people that I enjoy listed on my website, and other people have submitted their favorites too. So if you really want to know the list, you can go to the website. Robin Stonecipher, who asked that last question, also asked, when did you write your first novel? How long did it take? I wrote my first novel, well, it was published January 1st of 2012. And to write it, I started writing it, I don't know, I wrote like a paragraph here and a paragraph there over a period of a year just because it was a story that I just had to tell. But like I said earlier, I just didn't think I would find anybody to publish it, and I wasn't going to go through the painful process. But then I think it was November, I read an article about Amanda Hocking, and she's one of the first indie authors who really made it big. And I said, ooh, I could do that. And the first book I'll write has got to be that book about the shipwrecked kids, because my whole life I've wondered, what if I was shipwrecked on an island? How would I survive? So I have been playing through the scenario in my head for ages, like, I don't know, 25 years. What would I do if? So I had to get it out of my head, really, so that I could move on to other projects. So I started really seriously writing it in November, and I finished it in December, and I published it on January 1st. And that's the book that's taken me the longest to write. It's also the longest book I have. It's like, I don't know, 116,000 words. And most of my books are around 87 to 90,000 words. But it was my first one, and it's a story that I absolutely had to tell before I told anything else, because I've been thinking about it for so long. Would you ever write a horror novel? If yes, what would it be about? I actually have a book that I want to write. It's called Girls' Night Out. And I don't know that it's horror, but there's pretty horrible things that are going to happen in it. So I guess it is kind of horror. It's more maybe thriller than horror. But it's not fantasy, it's not action-adventure. It would be the first time I've ever delved into that genre, and it won't happen until 2014. But this is another one of those books that I have to write. It's a story I have to tell. And it's kind of along the lines of, there's a movie I saw a long time ago about a woman who was attacked in a parking lot, and then it might have been Farrah Fawcett or it was somebody, famous actress like that. And the guy came after her later using her driver's license to get her address, and she somehow got him tied up and then just like beat the crap out of him in her house. you know, in retribution for coming to rape her or whatever he was going to do. So it's kind of along those lines. So it's pretty dark and definitely not for a young audience. But it's just a story that's been haunting me for the past, I don't know, couple of years. So that book will get written, and I guess you could call it horror. Why did you choose to move to France specifically? I loves me some crepes. And which fictional character do you most identify with? It can be one of yours or not, you pick. And that was from Corey Cox. And it was Misty Valley, or Val, who did the horror novel question. Corey Cox. Okay, why did I move to France? Well, it was supposed to be a one-year adventure. I should have brought a bottle of water in here with me. Sorry about that. It was supposed to be a one-year adventure just to, I don't know, give our kids another perspective to learn about this other culture that we really love from vacationing, and just to shake up our lives a little bit, I guess. We were just kind of stuck in this routine and this, you know, keeping up with the Joneses mentality and, you know, not necessarily satisfied with our jobs. My husband had lost his job when the economy got really bad, and he was in another job, but it wasn't very good. It was kind of depressing. So we said, what the hell, let's do it. So we sold everything we owned, and we just went for a year. And then after being here for 6 months, we just decided to stay because it's a beautiful place. Our kids are becoming bilingual. They're mostly bilingual now, which is a huge advantage. And we have a very simple life. It's kind of like what the United States was like in the 1950s. You know, you don't lock your door, and you know all the people in your town, and it's like a forced, slow lifestyle. You can't get anything done in a hurry here. And nobody wants to get anything done in a hurry here because then, you know, we'd be big city folk, which they don't want to be. So I don't live in Paris. It's different in Paris. It's much like any metropolitan place. But where I live in southern France, it's very, very laid back. So that's why I moved to France. Which fictional character do I identify with most is Jane Sparks from War of the Fae. Okay, Chastity Monroe Bozovsky says, how do you pronounce Packy, P-A-C-I? Is it Pacey or Packy? And the answer is Packy. And let's see, Kelly Boyd, who would you pick to play Tim the Pixie and Spike in a movie? I do not know, because I don't ever cruise through the pictures and do that. But what I always say when anybody asks me a similar question is that I would want like unknowns to play all these parts, because for me, sometimes when you put a really well-known actor in a part, it pulls me out of the fantasy because I know like that guy as somebody else. For example, one of the worst picks, I think, for a role was Woody Harrelson in Hunger Games. I mean, Woody Harrelson is this, I don't know, you know who he is. He's not that guy. I don't remember names. I'm sorry. I had 2 glasses of wine before I started this video. Hamrick or something like that. Anyway, he's supposed to be this big, tubby, drunk mess of a guy. And yeah, Woody Harrelson can do that, but he's Woody Harrelson. So I wouldn't want somebody famous like that playing the parts. I just would like them to look like they are in my head. And I see Tim as kind of like this metrosexual, hair always perfect, you know, sassy, prissy kind of guy. Also very, you know, confident about himself. And Spike, he's got to have the teeth, you know. And there's a guy, I'm sure you've heard of him. His name is Gautier, who sings that song that sounds a lot like Sting from the Police. He's got teeth kind of like Spike. Not totally, but close. And occasionally I'll see people out there with these teeth. And so he would have to have the teeth. If Spike in a movie of my book did not have the teeth, then I would have to like pick at the movie or something, because that would just be wrong. Anyway, you know, I have an issue with teeth, I guess. Jessica Wildman Link. Okay, I know I just destroyed your middle name there, and I'm sorry about that. Wildman Link. Are you a Krav Maga master? You do not want to have an interaction with me in a dark alley. That's all I have to say. All right. Mignon C. Fogarty. And maybe she doesn't pronounce her name Mignon, but because it's French, I'm going to say it the French way. And in case you guys didn't know this, Mignon is quite famous. She's, as far as I know, my only celebrity reader fan. Mignon Fogarty is the Grammar Girl. I actually have her book just over there in my bookcase, and I should have had it handy so I could hold it up in front of the camera. When I have a grammar question in my books, I go to Mignon's website. Now, if there are grammar errors in my book, they are not her fault. They are only because I failed to go to her site to find the answer. But she's Grammar Girl. And the fact that Grammar Girl likes my books, to me, is like, woo, huge compliment. So, what's your question, Mignon? It's, what is the one thing that helps you most to write so many books per year? Outlining? Answer to that question is no. An editor? No. Childcare? Yes, my husband manages the kids. Coffee? No, I do not drink or like coffee. Dictating instead of typing? I just tried that and it totally didn't work. You actually dream your plots? No, the plots that I dream are absolutely ridiculous and make no sense. I'm terribly curious. Okay, so I answered all her mini questions, but the big question is, how do you write so many books in a year, which is about a book a month, and last year a little bit more than that. I am a very fast typer. I let my characters write the books for me, and I have very strong character voices. So I really just sit down and take dictation, and I don't outline, because for me, outlining stifles the characters' voices. It's me trying to tell the characters what to do instead of the characters telling me what they want to do. And it's always been this way for me, and I thought, you know, I must just be a little bit nuts, because it sounds ridiculous. I know it does, but it's really how it is. And then I watched this video interview of Stephen King, and I was like, oh, first of all, Stephen King, you're awesome. And second of all, he said exactly what I've been saying. Of course, he's probably been saying it for 35 years, and I just started saying it this year, but so I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying that he validated my writing style and my character development and just how I do my thing. Like, I do it like Stephen King does it, which, woo, yeah, pat this baby on the back. But seriously, I know some people can't do it that way, but I know some people can. Like Jason Brandt, that dope that I wrote a book with, he does the same thing that I do. So I think the key is to have some really cool characters, like quirky people. Like, you don't want anybody boring. Who wants to read a story about a boring person? You got to have quirky people who are not perfect, and you got to put them into a situation and then let them just run with it. You know, I know that I want a book that has supernatural creatures. I know that I want kids to be working independently, and I know that I want eventually this to happen at some point, and then I just go. So I've tried outlining. It doesn't work for me. I never follow it because it's really not me doing the writing. It's my characters. Misty Dies, or Misty Dees, I still don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, and I've said it like 10 times. Was Bodo's character in looks and or personality based off of the real Bodo he's named after? The real Bodo is a former student of mine, and one of my favorite students ever. And he was a very playful person, so I would say that his personality was very much based on him. I don't know that his looks were, although the real Bodo is tall and I guess muscular for a 22-year-old person, and blondish hair and blue-eyed. But when I was picturing the Apocalypsis Bodo, he didn't look like the Bodo that I know. So there is some parallels there, mostly just the playful personality. Let's see, Dawn Morales Bauman. You write so many different series. How do you finish a book in a series and then start another one in a different series so quickly? Actually, that is really easy. It's harder to write the last book of a series than to start the first book of a new series. The last book of the series is always the hardest because there are so many expectations. Readers are, you know, clamoring for it. I don't know, that sounds like I'm bragging to say that, but you hear people every day or see them on your Facebook or in your email or your Twitter saying, when's it going to be out? When's it going to be out? I really need to read it. And I hope this happens to this character. And I hope this character doesn't die. And I hope this character gets to do this. And so you have so many people weighing in, and you just don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't. I mean, I think there's some authors out there who get a secret thrill out of pissing readers off, but that's not me. I do try to make everyone happy, but I'm not really writing the story. The characters write the stories. And so, for example, in Apocalypse Book 4, which was such a hard book for me to write because the pressure that I put on myself was horrendous. But I really had no idea what was going to happen. And when Bodo did the things he did, I was so disappointed in him. And that sounds kooky, right? Like I must have a split personality somewhere. Like one of me's writing the book and the other one's reading it going, what the hell? But that's really how it is for me. And I was so disappointed because I love Bodo. I think he's a wonderful person and I wanted him to end up with Bryn. And oh, if you have not read Haven yet, and I just spoiled it for you, I'm really sorry. Spoiler alert! I should have put that. Maybe I'll add that in later if I can figure out how to do it again. But anyway, yeah, spoiler alert. Stop watching for a while if you haven't read the book because I'm going to talk about it. I just, I feel really bad about what happened with Bodo, but that's real life, you know? Guys do stupid shit all the time, right? I mean, the guys I ever dated did. I dated a lot of guys who did stupid stuff. So, yeah. Sorry for those of you who wanted Bodo to end up with Bryn, but it's not my fault. Bodo just did stupid stuff and Bryn had to do the right thing, and I'm proud of her because I think most girls would have just ignored the inner, you know, moral compass and said, all right, I'm going to let you crap on me and I'll just ignore it, you know. So I'm proud of her that she stayed true to her character. And I think Bodo, from the very beginning, I always felt like he had something not right. Like he wasn't as good at how he managed things as Bryn was. I think he has some growing up to do, and I think he'll do it because he's a good person. I think Bodo is a good person as a character, and he just needs to grow up. And I think he'll probably learn a very painful lesson with how things went with Bryn. Gary Wilson, when you write a book, do you develop an attachment to the characters? And with that, how do you deal with bad things that happen to them? Yes, I'm going to tell you something. The end of Haven, another spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. When I wrote that line about Winky dying, I cried. And when I reread the book 3 times editing it, I cried. It was awful. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, refusing to type it out, even though I knew it had to be typed out. It was awful for me. It's still awful for me because I not only do I love her as a character, but she is named after one of my first big fans. So, you know, it kind of hurts me that it happened to somebody that I, you know, who has the same name. It's not her, but it's the same name and inspired by a fan. So, yeah, that kind of stinks when I kill a fan name off. But I have to just remind myself it's not me doing it. It's the characters doing it. Okay. Tana Carter asks, why did you change the relationship between Bryn and Bodo? And my answer is, I didn't do it, okay? Bodo did it, and Bryn made the choices that she did, so I just have to live with it like you guys do, and I'm sorry. Julia Roney asks, Julia Roney, how cool of a name is that? Roni, macaroni. I know you got teased with that name, and I just love it. When I was a kid, I always said my favorite word was macaroni. Okay, your characters, I'm curious. Do you have friends you base off of, or do they just materialize? What's your muse, so to say? Well, I pick names sometimes from readers asking me to use their names as character names. And bad guys are always people I don't like. So, people who know me in my real life, who then read my books, if they see themselves as a bad guy, they know they're on my doo-doo list. My doodle list. So anyway, I'm a mean person. I get a little secret thrill every time I have a bad guy do something horrible or you know, get karate chopped or eye gouged. I just love that. I'm a bad person. I know it. And Elizabeth Pasenka seconded that question, so I'm answering it for both girls. Felicia Holscher said, oh, I got one. In Haven, the character James was an actor. Was he a made-up actor or based off a real one? I couldn't figure out who he was. And I'd say he was totally made up. I have no idea, but you tell me who you think he should be, and I'm happy. I think I might have seen James Franco on a Yahoo News report or something, maybe talking about hating Anne Hathaway or something. So maybe I put him in there for that reason, just because he was a name that popped up, but he wouldn't be because he's too old, right? It has to be a younger actor. Heather Eisenhuth, do you ever dream stories that you wake up and immediately start to write? I used to have these dreams that I thought would give Stephen King nightmares and wished I could articulate them into stories. I posted about this on my website a couple months back. My dreams, while I'm having them, I'm in the back of my head and like behind the dream, I'm going, ooh, this would make such a great book. Oh, this is going to be a blockbuster. This is going to be a New York Times bestseller. That's my goal someday, right? And then I wake up and I tell my husband, I got this awesome idea for a story. And then I start telling him the story. And the more I tell him, the more I realize that's like the dumbest non-story that was ever born. And I tell him, never mind, it's not a good story. And he's like, yeah, better not write that one. So I wish I had like Stephanie Meyer dreams where it's like vampires kissing in the meadow and, oh, you're a lamb and I'm a lion. No, my dreams are not like that. I get my ideas from just sitting there, having a glass of wine or watching a TV show or talking to my 9-year-old or walking the dog or whatever, and just something pops into my head. And so it's there. I guess I have like popcorn ideas. They're just like kernels sitting in there, and then one day they just pop. And I'm like, ooh, that's a great idea. I just had a really killer idea yesterday for a new series I'm going to try next year. I'll tell you all about it later, because this video is 41 minutes now, and I know nobody's going to watch this whole damn thing. And I got more questions, so let me move on. Jess McGuire, I'd love to meet you at an event like Supernova in Oz. How do we get you to do a tour so we can hug trees together and people can praise you in person? Man, you have no idea how badly I want to do that. And so I just told my husband tonight, we have to plan something for 2014, some sort of tour. And what I need from you guys is to spread the word about my books so that I can afford to pay for all those plane tickets, because that is going to be horrendously expensive. But I will line them up at some bigger cities where there are some book festivals going on. So, I'm flying from France, and I really hate traveling long distances by plane. I mean, I detest it. So I want to try to just like do it all in like a month period of time or 6 weeks. So just watch my website for news, or you can sign up for my newsletter. You should sign up for my newsletter, and you'll get news about it as I have plans firmed up. Sheena Mansell, how come you are so totally awesome and by far one of the best authors out there today? That's not really a question, but I love it anyway. I'm absolutely flattered. I've had some people recently tell me I'm their favorite author, and that just blows me away. I'm like, me? Are you kidding? Are my books the only books you've ever read? Seriously, that blows me away, because, Stephen King is my favorite author. So to think somebody would say I was their favorite author, I am their favorite author, it's like, that can't possibly be true. But I don't know how I tell stories. I've been telling stories and lies since I was a little girl, practicing my storytelling. So I don't know. Maybe it's just practice. Just tell a lot more lies as a child, and you'll become a really good storyteller by the time you're an adult. Teresa Vera. Teresa is one of my big beta readers, and I still don't know how to pronounce her last name properly. It's either Vera or Vera. So I'm sorry, Teresa. I'm a lame-o. Most of your books are written in first person. Do you prefer that over third person? Do you think it gives you a deeper connection to your main characters? I wrote my first book in third person, and I did multiple points of view. Each chapter or each scene switched to a different point of view. And it was nice, but I feel like first person is really the character speaking. Otherwise, it's me speaking. It's me kind of looking at what's going on, and I like the character to be right there with the reader and the main character, and that's, I guess, why I do it. I guess I do feel a deeper connection for the reader with the character. I did recently try first-person present tense, and that was wild. I did it in Aces High with Jason Brandt. We both decided to do something that we'd never done before. And I might do it again, but I'm not doing it that way in my recent series, Duality. It is first-person POV, but it switches each chapter between one main character and the other main character. There's dual main characters, a girl and a guy. But it is told in past tense. And but I'm doing a better job at using past tense this time. So I think it'll be, as far as the writing is concerned, technically speaking, my best book. But as I'm writing it, like all my books, when I write them, I think it's boring. So I hope you guys don't think it's boring. I've been wrong so far, but there's always a first time for everything. Teresa asks also, and also what made you choose to write aces high in present tense instead of past tense? Oh, well, a lot of books recently have been written that way, and Jason and I just wanted to flex our writer muscles, and so we did it. And Jason is still kicking himself in the head every once in a while going, why did we do that? And I say, shut up, bitch, stop complaining all the time. But I'm glad we did it, and I think we're going to keep doing it because it was fun. It's fun to do something different and challenge yourself as a writer that way. And the idea of the book was it was supposed to be very fast-paced and things just moving, and present tense does that. Rob George, what happened to Rob after the end of book 4, Haven? When will the next book in Aces High be out? And also, is an Apocalypse movie or TV series being thought about? Okay, these are 3 questions. We'll start with Rob. I'm not going to tell you anything about what happened to the characters after book 4 because, like I said, next year I think I'm going to do another series involving these characters, so I'll let you find out then. When will the next book in Aces High be out? I don't know. Jason and I have not firmed up any plans on that, but maybe May. Also, Apocalypse movie or TV series being thought about. I think about it all the time. And I have readers saying they want me to do it. But what people don't realize is that unless you're a gajillionaire as a writer, you can't make your own stuff into a movie or a TV show. Somebody in Hollywood or some producer somewhere needs to fall in love with your books and want to invest a lot of money and find other people to invest money in the project. And it's a several year process. I have had slight inquiries into Apocalypses, meaning someone just contacted me and said, if somebody wanted to turn your book into a movie or TV, who would they contact? Meaning, do I have an agent? But that's the only interest, which as far as I'm concerned is no interest, that I've received. But believe me, I am open to that. There is nothing I would love more than to see my work on a screen somewhere. Other than a Kindle screen, although seeing it on a Kindle screen is pretty badass. Okay, so that's Rob. Those are Rob's questions. Tana Carter, what will be of Bodo? I feel so sorry for him because you left him alone in the Keys. Poor Bodo. Well, you'll find out next year, Tana. Don't worry about old Bodo. I think he's going to bounce back just fine. She also asked, will you please write a spin-off series based on Tim the Pixie? I want to know more of his stories. I think they would be just awesome. Well, I have toyed around with the idea of continuing with the War of the Fae as Jane is now Dragon Rider. So who knows? Maybe you'll learn about Tim. I don't know if I'll do a spin-off series about Tim, but I do miss him. He cheers me up. I love reading his stories. So never say never with me. If enough people ask for something, I usually do it. Jamie Pinson said, I love your sense of humor. I think this is my last question too, by the way. Wow. And my video is only 48 minutes. Holy crow. I think I better make these shorter in the future. Okay, Jamie Pinson said, I love your sense of humor and notice a lot of your posts that sound exactly the same way some of your characters joke around. Does their sense of humor just come naturally from you? Also, do you plan every part of your book or just get an idea and go from there? Basically, do you plan your books out or do they just kind of write themselves and you're sometimes surprised where they take you? Okay, so the first one, sense of humor. I am known as a smartass. So if you ever see any of that in my characters, it's likely coming from somewhere inside my head. But you will notice that my main characters and my secondary characters all have pretty different personalities. But the main characters all have one thing in common, and that is that they are independent people. And that's certainly descriptive of me. But, I think every person, you, me, everybody we're different people at different times. Sometimes I'm shy. Sometimes I'm outgoing. Sometimes I'm too tired to do anything but sleep. Sometimes I'm very professional and businesslike, and other times I'm incredibly immature. The thing about me is that I don't apologize for it. Maybe I did when I was younger, but I'm to the point in my life where I really don't care what somebody else thinks about it. I'm sorry if it offends somebody, but at the same time, I don't filter myself to keep other people happy, because really, you can't keep everybody happy. It's a big waste of time. So I think I just totally went off on a tangent. Jeez, it's getting late. My answer is that I've always been told I have a sense of humor, and I love to joke around, and I gravitate towards people who make me laugh. And I think it's one of the strengths of my books that they make people laugh and other times make people cry. I think emotional connections are important in the reader experience. And I don't sit down and say to myself, okay, make this book funny. But honestly, I don't want to write a book that's boring. So I need to be laughing myself. And so I let the characters do what people do. You know, that's what happens when you get teenagers together and there's not an adult around where they have to filter themselves. They swear. I mean, any parent out there watching this and you think your kids don't swear or they don't hear their friends swearing all the time, you are living in a fantasy world. Your kids are swearing and so are their friends. And, you know, I want to portray kids how they really are. I want to portray adults how they are when people aren't watching. And so I hope I do that. Some people agree that I do and some people don't. But hey, that's life as an author. You're never going to make everybody happy. Try as I might. Okay, so that's the questions. Those are the questions. So I thank you, all you readers who submitted questions. And for any of you who've reached the end of this video, gold star for you, because I have no idea how you put up with this thing. I have a feeling those answers were lame. But anyway, I have an exciting new series coming out called Duality. I'm going to just play the theme music while I tell you about it. There it is. It's about a kid named Malcolm who has been pretty much alone most of his grown-up life because he lost his parents when he was young to horrible self-inflicted tragedies. And he has this terrible condition or something that causes people around him to get very depressed and angry and upset. And he draws darkness to him and feeds into the darkness that people have and causes them to hurt themselves or become very depressed. So he's being a good person inside. He doesn't want to do that to people, so he does his best to avoid them, but he needs to get through school before he can go off on his own. And so he's pretty much resigned to this life of darkness. But then he meets a girl named Ray who comes to his school, and she has this opposite thing going on. So in when it's in his point of view, we're hearing about, you know, how he's avoiding people to help them stay healthy, mentally healthy. And then we have Ray, who's talking from her point of view, saying how she can't let people get too close to her because they get so attached to the happiness that she brings to their lives and the light that surrounds her that they become obsessed with her. And then they become dangerous because they have no personal limits anymore where she's concerned. They become addicted. And so they're meeting in this first book for the first time and coming to terms with, you know, they thought for 18 years what their lives were and have learned to deal with it. And then suddenly, whenever they're around each other, it's different. And they struggle with whether this is something real or whether it's something else is happening that they don't understand, or they're attracted to each other, but they question what's the basis of the attraction. And they have some side character friends that are very smart-assy and funny and provide the levity to the situation. And there's going to be some action. It's not as action-y as Apocalypsis or War of the Fae, but definitely it's going to have some things going on, some conflict from the middle point to the end, I think, where most of it is. And I'm excited about it. I have no idea what books 2 and 3 are going to be, though. So I'm just going to let the characters write the stories. And if I have to end after book 2 and there is no book 3, then that's just what we'll have to do. But for sure there are going to be 2 books, and I hope a 3rd, but we'll let the characters decide. So that's my plan. I got lots of stuff lined up for 2014 already, or ideas, and I'll be posting my 2014 publishing schedule in the next couple of months. And hopefully make plans in 2014 for some book tour stuff so I can meet some of you awesome people. I'm really excited about that. Like, I really cannot wait to meet a live person who likes my books, because the only live people I've met who like my books are my family, and not all of them like them. So, you know, I don't know. I want to meet some real stranger people who like my books. That would just absolutely thrill me. So thanks for sticking with me. We're 55 minutes into this mother, and it is time for me to go watch a movie. So I'll talk to you again in a couple months when I do my next video.